Hello, hope everybody can hear me. Let me check my volume here. It is a blustery day outside, and I took off my sweatshirt, and I still got my blue jeans on, and don't really need a sweater here in the sewing room. So we're going to pick back up on our doll dress project. If we can get this angle good to pick up where we left off. We had cut out our pieces. We had edged all the pieces. We put the fronts and the back together. We did the pleats. Now we're ready to work on the sleeves. And we have 3 different little girl dresses going to match some doll dresses for some really sweet little girls in our life. And this is what the sleeve looks like, right? This is one sleeve. So we're going to want to be adding some trim to one side, and we're going to want to gather the shoulder area on the other side. And then once we've gathered this area and added the trim to this area, we're going to add some elastic so we create a little bit of a puffiness. And our pattern that we're using doesn't look exactly like our doll dresses, but we're going to try to make it match it as closely as possible. All right. And welcome back into our sewing room. Let's see, I had already cut some trim out. Let's just double check my trim pieces. All right, this really long piece is going to be for the waist, right? And let me just give you an example of what these doll dresses look like so you can see what we're trying to do. So this is one of the doll dresses, and I'm not actually going to put a name on it because I don't really think it's a safe idea to put names on children's clothing, but I thought it was kind of cute putting the name on the doll dress for the child. But we're going to mimic this. The dress, the little girl dress doesn't have a collar, so we're going to have to create our own collar piece. The little girl dress has sleeves. It doesn't have this waistline, so we're going to be able to get this pretty darn close. And to reference, this is the butter pattern that we're adapting, and it's got a pretty good size range. This one is 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the other one is 6, 7, and 8. And it's butter B4176 in the event you're interested in trying this yourself. And this pattern does run about 2 sizes large, so we trimmed it back a little bit because we want it to fit, although better is bigger than smaller because they can always wear it in the future, right? All right, let's get started here. So the first thing we're going to do on our sleeves is we're going to do a basting, and I just use a threaded needle to do this. We're going to baste along here so we can gather it, and that's really simple. I'll just take a little thread off of my sewing machine for this. We're really hoping for some rain today here in Southern Nevada. It's only rained twice so far this year, at least during the summer. And when you have weather that's not so great, even though you need it, it's a good day to do an inside project. If you were around for our walk today, you know I'm taking a break in the kitchen because we're having one of our cabinets redone. And I'm having to take everything out of the cabinets and off the countertop. So we're just going to take this, and when I hand sew, I like to loop back through the thread to secure the knot. And then we're just going to very quickly and loosely go like this. And see how we can just pull this like this, right, to gather it. We had a pretty good following for the doll dresses. It didn't seem like there was as much interest in the little girl dresses, but this is the project I'm working on, so it's a project I'm sharing with you. I think there was about 6 people following this project, and I apologize for the gap and picking back up on it. One thing that's really great about sewing is you can put it down, and we have had some things that have kept us busy. I really do want to finish this project because I got a lot of other projects that I'm working on, and finishing this project will clear up some space for me, right? And these are gifts that I'm making for our great nieces. And this year I decided to try to make most of my gifts, so it's kind of a good personal challenge to have. And this is super, super easy to do, gathering the top of the sleeve. Just want to give it a little bit of a puff so it looks like our doll dress, right? I think these little girls are going to be pretty thrilled to have holiday dresses that match their dolls. And I can't wait to see them in them. All right, so now let's just take a look at this. Just kind of want to make sure our gathering is kind of even and that it is gathered. You don't want it super tight, but you can kind of see we're going to make like a little bit of an arc there with our gathering, right? You can see that like that, okay? And when you're satisfied with your gathering, then you're just going to tie this off here so it holds. Now it'll be cemented in, I guess that's not really the word, but it'll be secured when you actually sew the sleeve into the dress. You don't have to like go crazy with your knots, just enough to hold it. All right, so that's one sleeve. And let's do the next one. And actually, I have 3 dresses that I'm working on, so I think we should do all 3 sleeves at the same time. I'm finding that when you have a project you're doing and you're doing multiples of the same project, that it really speeds up your time if you do all of one thing at once, right? Kind of like machine assembly style. Anybody else got a cute little tape measure like this? So handy. I actually use it for a lot more things than just sewing. We are working on getting our winter garden going and our hydroponics gardening going. Been doing a little bit of canning. Some of it I've shared with y'all. If it's a video I've already made, I might do a short, but I typically don't redo the same video. And when I'm doing canning, I kind of alternate, right? Like 1 year I'll make tomato paste or marinara or pasta sauce, whatever you want to call it. And another year I'll make chili sauce, right? Once in a while I do both. But the pasta sauce projects are actually a lot of work, so I try to make enough of that to last for a little while. We always have a project going in this house, never a dull moment. Probably about the only time I ever take a break from my projects is if I'm sick, which thankfully doesn't happen too often, or if Mr. Painter and I go on a road trip, which we actually haven't done in quite a while. We're about to do something like that. We need to get Miss Meg in the car first, though. That's our cute little shelter dog. So what do you think of this daisy fabric? I think it's really pretty. And originally I bought this daisy fabric from Joann's, but Joann's is going out of business. and I really wanted to match it, right, for the matching dresses for the dolls, for the little girls. And I found the same pattern on Hobby Lobby, so I was really thankful. Sometimes I buy fabric and I don't realize I'm going to use it for something else. So in hindsight, it's better to buy a little more than you need when it comes to fabric, so that if you expand your project, you don't have to worry about whether or not you can match it. And this cotton is pretty sturdy. I've really liked it. You know, sometimes you can buy some fabric and it doesn't seem that strong, but this fabric is actually quite sturdy. It's good quality. Right. Actually, I don't need the glasses on for that part. Let's go ahead and pucker this up just a little bit. And when I do this, I like to look at the other sleeve and just make sure I'm doing about the same, right? Okay, just a little more here. That looks about right. And we'll just tie this off. I knew this was going to be kind of a big project, and that's part of why I got into doing certain steps of each dress at the same time, because it made it a lot easier for me. All right, so here's these two sleeves. And here's these two sleeves. Go ahead and do these. And repetition improves your skill. The more you do something, the better you get at it, and the more confident you become, usually. And I hope you can see good enough at this angle. I always have a little pair of glasses next to my workstation nowadays for threading needles. And in the event that I ever have to rip a seam out, which thankfully doesn't happen very often, but at my age, those glasses really come in handy at times. I'm pretty lucky though, because I don't need them for everyday life, just for close up. All right. Try that again. And so even though I'm doing the same part of each dress at the same time, I'm keeping each dress separate. So I have one pile for this size over there, one pile for another size. So I don't accidentally sew the wrong parts together, right? That would be one caution, especially if you have several things that are the same color. I have another dress that I'm doing that's pink for another little niece. And that doll dress is in process. I figure I've done so many doll dresses, y'all might be tired of seeing that, right? Let me know. We haven't actually done all the patterns yet, though, so we could actually do some more if anybody would like to see more doll dresses. It's definitely really easy to gather these sleeve tops, though. Give a little bit of design element, little puffiness on the shoulder. So I've been thinking we also have great nephews, and I'm kind of thinking I'm going to make some ball caps for at least a couple of the boys. One of them I know likes the bangles, and I just happen to have that embroidery design, so I can embroider a bangles design on one of the parts for the cap. Oh, hey, Jaden, thanks for joining in. How you doing there? Just happened to look over and glance and see that you joined back in. I've also been enjoying doing some sewing for myself, which is really fun. Not long ago, I made a really cute shirt that I really like, and I've worn it a couple of times. And it has really vibrant colors. It's a floral. My husband says it's a little old, kind of old-timey pattern, but I really liked it. Actually, he liked it too, but it's just fun to work with different texture. You're going to start doing some sewing. Well, that's awesome. Glad you're doing good, Jaden. Thanks for joining again. It's definitely relaxing, you know. I find sewing relaxing. Now, when you first start learning, maybe sometimes it might not feel that relaxing because you might get frustrated when you're trying to figure out a pattern. But when it comes to sewing clothes, I have a secret that I do. If I'm having a problem, I'll go find another shirt, right? And I'll see how they did it. And then I'll look at the pattern pieces because then it kind of helps you match up how things should go, right? Does that make sense? That's my secret method if I'm sewing clothing. Oh my goodness, you have a sewing machine you never use. Well, break that out. You might want to give it a little dusting. I have a paintbrush from time to time. Paintbrush. I'll just take this plate off that holds the bobbin and the underparts of the machine. I'll just take this brush and I'll just go around in it like this to get dust out. And you can also take a vacuum when you do that and just kind of suck up the dust, because you do end up with dust in your machine or um, fragments of the fabric too. It just builds up, right? Okay, let's go ahead and do this other one. And I really like this daisy pattern. I'm not sure how it would look on me, but I kind of want to make something for myself out of it too. Possibly that really cool hat design that I made not long ago. You know, if you caught my hat video, I actually made 3 different hats. I have a friend that's going through chemo right now, and a lot of times when people have chemo, it makes their hair fall out, and I thought she might enjoy having some classy head coverings to wear while she's going through all that. She has about 6 months of chemo. They do it like every 21 days, so that's a lot to go through. You got any friends out there going through stuff like that, be sure to give them some support. All right, let's do our next one. You see how simple this is, right? Just gathering this. Remember to tie it off. And thread color is important too. So this fabric has both a charcoal and white. So you could use white, you could use gray, you could use black. That would all work really well for sewing. Kind of want your thread color to blend in. Oh, the other thing that you want to do from time to time if you have a sewing machine is put a little oil on it. And if you buy a bottle like this, it'll last for a long time because you don't do it too often, right? You want to make sure all the metal parts move freely, because if they don't, that can put wear and tear on your machine, kind of make it gum up, cam up, overheat, that kind of thing. Another fun thing to do with sewing is you can actually take something you bought and maybe you don't like exactly how it fits or you don't like the design, you can actually alter your own clothing. I've done that a few times. One time I bought something that was a dress and it was knit and it was a little shorter than I really wanted. Like I had to wear leggings with it. And I actually took the bottom off of it, right, and made it into a shirt. And I used the bottom on both sides to make sweetheart sleeves. And that turned out really awesome. And I actually liked it a lot more as a shirt than I did a dress, especially seeing that it was a little shorter than what I really wanted to wear day to day. Almost got this one. Okay, and let's just make sure we have this gathered about the same on both sides. Tie it off. Yeah, those hat patterns were super fun, and I am looking forward to making more hats. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do for our nieces that are like preteen, right? Because they're a little old for dolls and cute little girl dresses. All right, where are my sleeves for this one? All right, here we go. This is the last little girl dress. We have some pink sleeves. And this is kind of a cool bohemian batik style fabric. It's two-toned in pink. And so this fabric's really fun to work with. I haven't actually made anything for myself out of this particular color and design. I have one that's floral that I really like that's kind of orangish, greenish, and the color goes from dark to light as well. I did make myself a dress out of that. That was pretty cool. And actually, I really like that dress pattern a lot, so I'm probably going to be making more dresses like that for myself. It's very comfortable, flowy, but you can dress it up if you like. That's a cool thing about sewing too, is you can make something plainer, fancy. You know, you can change up the fabric to make it more casual or to make it a little fancier. You can also make it more comfortable, right? That's a big one. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. So this is the last sleeve that we're working on, and then I'll show you how we're going to add the trim and the elastic to it. And that's for the cuff edge on the lower part of the arm, right? And I'm not doing any particular size stitch. I'm just trying to be relatively even and trying to work quickly, right? You're not going to actually see this part on the outside. That's going to be covered in our seam allowance. We're just basically doing a quick gather on the sleeve to make it puffy. Yeah, I thought about maybe making like little purses or bags for our nieces. Last year, I got them these little mini bag backpacks that they really liked a lot that had pockets and whatnot. And I thought, well, maybe this year I'd make them something custom. Another thing I thought about possibly making for us and the younger people in our family are sleeves for their phones that block radiation, right? There's a lot of debate as to whether or not having that phone in your pocket or close to your body could actually do some harm. So we always have our phones with us, right? Guilty as charged. So we need to think about protecting ourselves from possible radiation, I think. That might be a fun thing to make as well. Not exciting, but I guess we could make them look cool, right? That's probably what we need to do if we want anybody to actually use them. You can see how we're just kind of making a puffy part here, right? That's going to be on the top of the shoulder. All right, last shoulder top. And then we'll be ready to move on to the trim part. And we're doing our trim to match our doll dress. We want our little nieces to feel like dolls when they're playing with their dolls. Actually, we think they are little dolls. And we don't have any grandkids yet, so we try to spoil our great nieces and nephews. Let's see. And we're not in a big rush to have grandchildren either. Never push your kids into doing something that they're not ready for, right? Those are difficult decisions. Yeah, this part's a little dull, but it's important. I'm always trying to balance myself between everything I have going on. Um, Dehydrating the herbs as they grow is pretty important. Figuring out when to harvest fruit and vegetables in the garden is pretty important. I find that with the bug population we have here that regular harvesting is a good idea. That way you eat more of it and they eat less of it, right? Okay, let's just gather this to match the other sleeve. Looks pretty good. Go ahead and tie it off. Then I will show you how we're going to do the next step, the trim and the elastic, which is actually also quite easy as well. Yeah, assembling the garment of a dress or outfit doesn't take that long. It's the little touches that you do like this that are a little more time consuming. Right. Go back to the first one we started, and let's go ahead and pin our trim onto the sleeves. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the sleeve trim right side to the right side. And I'm going to pin it. And this is actually super easy to do. Kind of think we had a lot of kids following the doll dress sewing. They probably were saying, "Grandma, make me a doll dress. Mommy, make me a doll dress." Those McCall patterns are super easy to follow. And I have just a little bit of leftover fabric here on the end, so I'm just going to trim that carefully. Don't cut your sleeve. And don't worry about having a raw edge here because it's going to be hidden. All right, let's pin the next one. And right sides to right sides. Actually, let me just double check the width here. Okay. Got a little bit of a fringe on the edge of this piece. That's how the fabric came, so we're just going to butt that up to the edge of our sleeve. Let it hang over just a little bit because we're not counting that as part of our width. And just loosely pin it. And we'll trim this one too. Okay, the next step is we are going to do a little seam right there, right, on both pieces. And that's going to be about 5/8 inch. we just go forward and backwards to seal off our seam. Go ahead and cut your threads. Don't want any loose threads on anything that we sew, right? Remove the pins. And then we will do the same thing to the other sleeve. Super easy, just takes time. That measurement the same? Yes, I do. And go ahead and cut our seam. Cut this one. And now you can see we've created a nice edge here between these two colors of fabric. So the next thing we're going to want to do is fold this over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it over. See the seam that we created, the two pieces of fabric? I'm going to fold it over to line it up even with that fold. So we'll create a little band about that wide on the outside. Whatever you do, whatever you use for your measurement and your marking, just do the same thing consistently on both, right? Just be consistent. And make sure your layers are flat. You don't want any gathers or puckers. And sometimes when I'm doing this, I like to work it from both sides. More of a tension thing. Keeping your tension even, especially when you're working with a curved shape. Just makes it a little easier in my opinion. And try not to poke yourself. If you do poke yourself, get a Band-Aid. You don't want to bleed on your fabric for sure. And let's just pin this a little differently right here. Oh. And then you can verify that your distances are the same. I have something a little funky here I need to work out just by turning it over and seeing what it looks like, right? So let me just take a look at this spot right here and see why I have this puckering. Oh, I see what I did. Okay. All right, so this one's pinned. Let's go ahead and pin the other one. Pin it the same way so that your trim is the same size, right? From time to time, I buy new pins because these do get a little bent, especially if you use them a lot and you're working with heavier fabric. But I try to make them last as long as I can, which is often for some time. And something I've done that's kind of fun with these projects is sometimes I try to pair two pattern fabrics together. You have to be careful when you're doing that because you don't want the fabric to clash, but you can really create a lot of really cool texture. So for example, if you look really closely at this white has a little bit of a floral pattern on it as well, but it's not super demonstrated or super obnoxious, right? I kind of feel like that creates texture, which I like. Right, let's just check and see how this is doing. Okay, I've got a couple of spots here that I need to pin a little better. Right in here. The areas that are the most challenging is right where you go around the curve. So just make sure that your layers are flat, that your fabric didn't bend in a funky way, and then pin it. And so it looks like this is a little more narrow than this one, so I'm going to adjust this just a little bit. You want to make sure that you leave just enough space that you can fit your elastic through it, right? Because that's going to be the next step we're going to do. And I think this one's just a little smaller because I had that fringy part on one side of the cut fabric. But that is very easy to adjust for. We're just going to repin, leaving the fringe exposed, which adjusts and fixes our width perfectly. So that's a little extra step, but solves the problem. And I think that when we sew this, we will actually sew it on the side that will be seen when the garment's worn. So we can just make sure that we like how it looks. Right about now, I'm wishing I would have put those shorts back on. Even though it's blustery and chilly outside, it's not blustery and chilly inside. We don't have our heat on. It's not necessary at this point. Actually, we'll be able to go quite a while without turning heat on here, but we don't have the air on really either at this point. Okay, let's just check our trim and make sure everything's laying flat on this side. It is. I still feel like this is a little thinner though. Okay, I know how to deal with this. You're going to encounter this when you're sewing, so. Hey, Parker, thanks for joining. Good to see you. And no worries, we know you're in school. School is number one. All right, so how we're going to deal with this is we're going to pin it from this side here so we can just look at the width and make sure we have it right, seeing that I'm stumbling on this part of this project. Doesn't need to be that hard, right? When you're adding trim and decoration, you want to make sure it matches. It wouldn't look good if it was two different sizes. We're not that far off. That was a message from Mr. Painter, very thoughtfully asking me if I needed anything. Yeah, sorry you missed our dog walk this morning, Parker. But don't ever feel bad if you're busy. We understand. We had a few new people join in today on the channel, which was nice. All right, we just about have this pinned. Just about. Go to this much trouble, you want to make sure you get it right. Nobody's going to wear anything that's lopsided or mismatched, or you get my drift, right? Okay, we are ready to sew. And since we have overlap, I'm just going to sew right along here on the edge. All right, let's do it. So we'll go backwards and then forwards. Super easy. Go ahead and cut our threads. Take these pins out. We don't want to poke ourselves. And we'll do the other side. That pin out. How's school going for you, Parker? Do you have any fun plans this weekend? Go ahead and cut our threads. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is now we have this fabric here that's loose on the inside. I'm going to use some pinking shears to trim that. That way we won't have a rough edge against our little niece's arms, and it also won't ravel. Just be really careful not to cut your sleeve, right? And if you kind of grab it with your fingers, that helps because you can feel where the edge is. And you can also see where your seam is. That's another good reason to have a little extra fabric. So if you ever did accidentally cut your sleeve, you could always cut a new one. And you could potentially make your sleeve shorter, right? If you had to. But we're just going to avoid that by being very careful. See, like that. So we're almost done with our sleeve construction. The next step is going to be to measure our elastic and pull it through. And then after that, we'll be ready to put the sleeve in the garment. That is one area where you have to be careful. that you don't accidentally put it in inside out. But I'll show you how I do that and avoid any inside out sleeves, right? All right, let's just check our pattern here, see if it gives us a measurement for our elastic. Maybe on the pattern. For the doll dress, it's about 5.5 inches, but our little nieces are bigger than the dolls. So let's see here, find sleeve. Here we go. Okay, so they say cut 2 pieces of elastic, each the measurement of the upper arm plus 1 inch. So we're just kind of wing this here. And an easy way to do that is let's just get our elastic. And I have like several different sizes of elastic. Just come over here. And it's better to have it a little bigger as opposed to a little smaller because you don't want anybody to have their arm squeezed, right? And elastic is really stretchy. A little more. So let's see how big this is. And again, this is something that you can easily redo if need be. So the doll dresses were about 5.5 inches. I'm going to do 12.5 inches for the little girl dresses. We just want it to pucker a little bit, but we don't want it to squeeze their arm either. So let's go ahead and cut 12.5 inches. And I'm going to cut all the elastic for all the sleeves all at once. That way they're the same size, right? So I don't need that right now. Anybody ever, well, at least for the gals out there, anybody ever have a dress when they were little that was like kind of scratchy because it was tight, or the edges of the fabric were horrible? That's what we want to avoid. We don't want to make anything that's uncomfortable for anybody, right? So we need 6 of these because we have 6 sleeves, 2 for each dress. So that's 4, 5, and 6. One more. elastic back in our little bin. All right, now I'm going to show you how I get this elastic in the sleeve casing, or the trim casing. We are going to use a needle and thread, and we're just going to attach our needle and our thread to one end of the elastic, tie it off, and we're just going to use that to pull it through our sleeve. That's how I do it. If you have a way that you do it that works, that you like, please share with the rest of us. And get it good because you don't want it to pop off, right? I'm just knotting that twice. Got a little pink bobbin thread there. Let's put that away. And I'm just carefully working the needle through my casing. Now, if you have a bigger needle, like a darning needle, that works better. This needle is reasonably large. It could be bigger, but just make sure you don't accidentally sew on the casing. The bigger your needle is, the easier this will work. I'm finding it to work pretty well. You can see we're starting to get our elastic about to enter the sleeve. And actually, we'll just wait to pull that through once we get this needle all the way through. I think that'll be easier. Maybe. Well, let's just let a little bit of this work in. Like that. I went with a slightly wider elastic. I have a couple of sizes. You don't want it too big and you don't want it too small, right? Make sure you size your elastic to your project. And now that we have our elastic going in, make sure you don't accidentally pull it all the way through without securing this end in the fabric. Sometimes I've used a really small crochet hook to kind of stab the elastic and pull it through. That can work too. Just want to pick a method where you don't lose your elastic in the middle, right? Got a little bit of a catch there. Let's work that out. There we go. So I'm being careful here. Once this gets to the edge, I'm going to sew that in, right? So it doesn't slide into the middle, because our elastic is shorter than the trim. You go to this much trouble, you don't want it to pull through and then have to figure out how to get it out or start over again, right? Oops, where'd our needle go? There it is. So basically, you're just working it in. Almost got it there. Oh, and I did exactly what I didn't want to do. The good news is it's not that far from the end, so I think I can grab it. Where's that crochet hook? All right, give me a minute here. All right, see, I've got this little tiny pokey crochet hook. I'm going to stick that in there. Try to grab this elastic. Whoops. There we go. Just pull it back out, right? We want to sew that right there. See how I did that? That worked really good. All right, let's go ahead and sew this, or it has a chance to suck back in there. I just go over it a few times to make sure it's really well secured. And that's going to be your seam anyway. Nobody's going to see that. Very good. And now let's pull this all the way through. And we'll do the other edge. Before we secure this, just kind of look and see how this is going to look on this sleeve. There's going to be a seam allowance, right? So we've got just enough gathering to give it a little shape at the bottom. See how that's going to be? All right, let's go ahead and secure this end. Oops. Very good. All right, so we have our elastic in, and the next step on the sleeve will be to go ahead and put right sides together, and we'll do a 1/2 inch seam right here. Let's go ahead and put a couple pins in there. You don't really need too many, just to hold it in place. Trim our threads, take our pins out. And I think we'll go ahead and take our pinking shears and we'll trim this again so that we don't have scratchy fabric there, right? It's really important when you're making stuff for kids. Important if you're making it for anybody, but especially kids. Their skin tends to be a little more fragile than ours. And we're using pinking shears so that we won't have any raveling. Now we can turn this like this. So this is the shoulder edge up here at the top, and this is the arm edge right here. And I think we'll go ahead and stop this live stream for today, and I'll go ahead and get all the rest of the sleeves made to go with the dresses, and we'll come back again another day to sew the sleeve into the dress. I hope you enjoyed sewing with me today. Thanks for watching.